I'm thrilled.
Amazed.
I'm completely thrilled. Well, an incredible collection of jewellery. My goodness, what a wonderful, wonderful, colourful jewel to see.
I went to a church antiques fair and I saw it in the cabinet, and I think it must have been my husband's birthday.
Goodness.
And so I thought, oh, I'll buy that.
That'll do nicely. Now, his name isn't Nelson, is it?
No.
But we got a good idea who it is, haven't we? Did you know what it was when you bought it?
Well, I just thought it was a tie-pin.
Just that?
Yes.
And, well, it is, of course, a tie-pin, and it's a very exciting tie-pin with the most amazing context. I mean, can you guess at its context? You must have thought about it.
Oh, yes. The gentleman who did sell me it said it was connected with Nelson, but he didn't elaborate too much, and I can't really remember what he did say.
No, well, the great thing is that you really did get it, and it's terribly, terribly exciting. I think that what's important to look at, first of all, is the way in which the word Nelson is laid out in black enamel. It's chanlevé enamel. That means that the gold lettering is raised up, and then it's flooded with black enamel. And it's in a way in which mourning rings were phrased in the early 19th century. And that's a clue to the fact that this is a very personal relic of Lord Nelson. He died on the 21st of October 1805 at the Battle of Trafalgar, and we know this only too well, really. And his big mistake was going on board wearing his medals, because he was a sure target for enemy fire. And of course he did receive enemy fire, and he was shot and fell, and nonetheless the battle was won. And I think it's perfectly possible that this may have been from a very close relative of his. So it's rather heart-stopping, isn't it?
It is, really, yes. Considering it was one of the last things we thought about bringing.
Is that right? Well, I'm very glad that you did, really, because it's positively luminous. I mean, I think jewellery is a very funny thing. You can say that the most magnificent piece of diamond set jewellery is jewellery, and you can say that something very intimate and exciting and relatively worthless is jewellery too. This has no intrinsic value whatsoever. I mean, if it was melted down, it wouldn't be worth £15. Can you remember what you paid for it on that day?
I was trying desperately to remember, and I didn't know whether it was £8 or perhaps a little more than that.
Well, whatever it is, you overdid it, obviously.
It certainly wouldn't have been very much. No.
Well, heaven alone knows what it's really worth. I mean, there are great collectors of Nelson memorabilia. There are great collectors of Napoleon memorabilia. And I think that if this turned up at auction, it caused quite a stir. And I don't really know what to say to you. I can just tell you that this is a very small, almost radioactive piece of British history, one that's terribly, terribly exciting for me to find. And I'm going to venture £4,000 to £5,000 on it.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm just amazed.
I'm thrilled.
Amazed.
I'm completely thrilled.
Yes.
I love it. My goodness, what a wonderful, wonderful, colourful jewel to see. What do you know about it?
Well, I know that it was most probably acquired by my grandparents. My grandfather was a well-known goldsmith and silversmith in the early part of this century. I think that's older. He obviously simply acquired it, I imagine, because he fell in love with it.
Well, I can quite see why you would. And, well, it's a stunning example of Victorian jewellery at its absolute best. And it's a type of jewellery that's often called Holbeinesque. There was a fashion throughout England in the 1860s to emulate the Elizabethan age. And so this is a Holbeinesque jewel in every sense of the word. Even the use of the peridot in the centre is typical of Renaissance jewellery. The reason that we call it a Holbeinesque is because it's loosely based on Holbein's designs, which are held in the British Museum.
Yes.
But in a more precise way, it's based on a well-known jewel which is kept at Southside House. And there is a jewel called the Gresley jewel, which must have been famous in the 19th century because parts of the decorative devices are repeated in homage to that jewel. These stylized flower heads are on the Gresley jewel.
Yes, this is enamel work, is it not?
It is.
All around
It's
the edge
called
here, yes.
chanlevé enamel. It's again a Renaissance technique where the gold is engraved and then it's flooded with these very vivid colours. And it's something that one would expect to see on English Renaissance jewellery. At Southside House, the Gresley jewel contains miniatures by Hilliard, and it opens from the side to reveal portraits of Queen Elizabeth within. In the 19th century homage to it, we find on the back Tudor roses.
Yes, I see, yes.
In vivid red and green Champ-Levé enamel. And what a wonderful thing it is. It's in pristine condition. I think what's interesting to know about Howell and James is that it was a very famous firm. What date do you assume it was?
Well, I had been told it was about 1870, and again the term Holbeinesque was applied to it, but any more than that, we knew nothing else. I don't know if it's even ever been worn. That may explain its pristine condition.
Well, I
don't
think
know.
in a way that's what would appeal certainly to anybody these days, and the value is quite dizzy, I must say. I think if it came up at a specialist auction, one could expect to pay £8,000 for it, and if somebody was really greedy, perhaps £10,000
Yes.
for such a dazzling example.
Gosh, how
Thanks
nice
for
to
bringing it.
know. It's a pleasure. Thank you for looking at
Wonderful.
it.
Amazing thing, isn't it?
Marvellous, absolutely marvellous.
How long
Yes.
have you had him for?
I've had him for about 20 years.
Has he always behaved quite well?
No, well, it wasn't in very good condition when I first had it, and it's been repaired and a bit refurbished. And then, at the last time I used it, I wound it up and broke the spring. So
There he
we
goes.
had to have the new spring put in locally, which was very good.
Oh, well, that seems to have done it very beautifully, I
Yes.
must say. I mean, it's undoubtedly Swiss, and
Yes.
this rather sort of florid palette for the enamelling is a signpost to that. And the reason that it is brightly coloured is because it's to attract an Oriental audience, really. It's almost certainly made for export to the Middle, if not the Far East. And it may date from... Well, I don't think this one's quite 1820. The fashion started in about 1820.
Yes.
And it went on because it was highly successful and highly amusing. I think this one's probably getting towards the end of the 19th century. But what did you feel like when you saw that for the first time?
I was amazed. I just couldn't believe it,
Couldn't
really.
believe it was true.
Especially when all the wires come up through that tiny little pedestal
Fantastic,
to operate
isn't it?
all the beak and all the wings and everything moving. It's absolutely incredible in my view. And they
Wonderful.
tell me the bellows in there, of which there are numerous bellows, are made of mouse skin.
Well, it could be mouse skin, a straight up one. Certainly chicken skin is the
Oh, I
cliche
didn't know
for it.
that, yeah.
They are miracles, really. It's miracles, tiny miracles to keep at home in a strange way. You've got to envisage a society where there's no television, no motor cars.
How wonderful.
And no cinema. And so entertainment had to be found in very small, intimate ways.
Yes.
And nothing was more amazing, really, in the 19th century than to open this marvellous box. I suppose the swan on the lid is a bit of a sort of hint as to the contents, isn't it?
I suppose, yes.
And it's a curiously sort of childlike thing, perhaps. I don't know. I mean, it's something that would amaze a child. Do you show it to children at all?
I have not, no.
No, quite sensible. I want to sort of
yeah,
snatch at this bird. And
exactly.
they're hummingbirds' feathers.
Are
That's
they?
why they have such a... And kingfisher as well, perhaps.
Yes.
No, a marvellous, marvellous thing, giving everybody great pleasure. And look how his head turns.
I
His
know, and the
beak
beak
opens.
opens.
Well,
Wonderful.
he's suddenly got tired. We all
Poor
have.
chap's gone run down.
I know, we all need our batteries winding up. Oh. Well, anyway, he's not going to close quite, so we'll probably have to leave him there and wind him up again. Brilliant thing.
Yes.
Did you have him valued at all ever?
Not really, no. I've had one or two people look at it, just very interested and say what they thought, but no, not officially, let's say, no. I
What
have
did they
not.
say? Come on, they had a go, didn't they?
No, not really, no. The local chap valued it at about £4,000 a couple of years ago, but that's about all, really. Yes.
I think £4,000 is quite enough. I mean, it's a right value. I would go along with that. Sometimes they can be very much more valuable when they're gold, and sometimes they're gem set. And if they're made for the Pasha of Egypt, they might be bigger and much more exciting. This is a very, very good example of a Swiss singing bird box. What a joy, honestly, you are lucky. A pair of ruby and diamond cufflinks in the form of owls' heads. Tell me about them.
Well, I didn't know they were ruby and diamond to start with. No, I didn't.
Well, that's a very, very good start then, isn't it?
It is rather, yes.
And we all want to know who they belong to.
They belong to my husband, and I bought them for him as a birthday present.
Well, what a brilliant thing. So gold and silver and rubies and diamonds. And I guess they date from about 1910, something like that. How much were they when you bought them?
I can't remember exactly, but I'm a generous wife, but not over the top. About £300, I think.
£300. Well, everybody would want these, I think. They look fantastic on a cuff.
husband likes them.
They're not too noisy and they're not insignificant and very desirable. And I'm going to value them at £1,250.
I think I deserve brownie points for years.
You do. As soon as I saw this box, which was lurking in the bottom of your handbag, it said something very specific to me.
Yes, I realised it must have done. I couldn't believe you'd spotted it so quickly.
Well, the reason is that it's made of hollywood, and it's a type of wood much favoured by a very famous Russian jeweller. Have you any idea who made this charming little brooch?
Well, when we first found it among my mother's effects, my daughter was looking at it and she said, that's Russian, I'm sure it says Fabergé. And I thought, I can't believe that, because I've no idea where it could have come from in our family.
No. And she was absolutely bang on, because in the lid satin, and satin it is a most luxurious object, this. I mean, the case is just as beautiful in a strange way as the object in it. This is pure silk at the top, and it says K. Fabergé, St. Petersburg, Moscow and Odessa. And it's an absolute bullseye. It's in perfect condition. The only thing that's a problem with it is that the pin has broken off, and that can be restored quite easily. And as you can see very plainly, it's in the form of a tiny little heart surrounded by diamonds.
Yes.
The stone in the middle, have you thought about the stone at all?
Not really. It's one I don't recognise at all. It's a faint green, so.
It is a faint green. I think it's a zircon. It's got a very high refractive index. It flashes rather wondrously, and I think it's a green zircon. But the point about this jewel really is not anything to do with intrinsic value, because I have to say, the material of it is fantastically modest. It's a green zircon, really very low value indeed. The diamonds surrounding it are very low value, and the gold is, of course, completely negligible. But it's heightened with a little flash of yellow enamel, isn't it? It's very artistic. And if you look under the yellow enamel, you'll see that you're seeing through the translucent enamel onto an engraved ground. There's a sort of flecked ground there.
Oh, I see. I hadn't really studied it that closely.
Not even when your daughter read Fabergé. You had a closer look then.
I don't think I really believed it.
No, you didn't believe it. Well, we've got to now, I'm afraid, because it jolly well is. I mean, it's really an extraordinarily wonderful find, really. See that funny little hallmark there? It stands quite simply for Carl Fabergé. And then 56, which is the gold standard. Running down the back of it is a series of numbers, which actually you could live with it for a whole lifetime and never see. This is engraved with a little steel point, and it gives a sequence of numbers which refer to stock books. I've actually had the time to look at the London stock books and check whether this jewel is in there. Maddeningly, it isn't. If it had been in there, we would have known exactly how much was paid for it, when it was bought, and by whom it was bought. I think it's highly likely to have been sold in London. I can date it between 1903 and 1915 from the lid satin. It says Odessa here. That branch didn't open until 1903. It's rather like an archaeological site. There's lots of sort of pulls on it, tiny, tiny brooch, and you think, well, what's all the fuss about? This is, of course, a heart on a bar, and it probably meant love on some level or another. It's a most lovely, lovely find. I find it very touching, actually. This is a souvenir of Russia that's long gone by. When it was bought, it wouldn't have been a cheap object in any way. Having said that it's worth next to nothing intrinsically, Fabergé was not a shop where you expected to buy things inexpensively. It was a shop for an Edwardian elite, really, with enormous spending power. I mean, luminous amounts of money, which we can really have no contemplation of either. And this was a little toy just taken off a shelf for a very specific meaning. It would have cost perhaps something like 30 or 40 pounds. Today, I think it might be worth £8,000.
And a week at the knees, good gracious.
Now, what's special about this?
Well, the history to it.
Tell me what the history is.
Well, it's supposed to have belonged to Lady Jane Grey.
Well, I think what's fascinating about this piece of jewellery is that it's mounted in silver in a most particular way. In the 17th century, and in the 16th century too, they'd find these little pieces of natural history, shells and horns and hooves of antelopes and beetles and this sort of thing, and mount them up and turn them into what are called magical jewels. These are talismanic jewels, and they're worn to ward off the evil eye. Now, it is a broken one, but I can see that it's a cowrie shell.
Yeah.
And the magical significance of the cowrie shell is that it's a fertility symbol, a female fertility symbol, which brings with it good luck. And we turn it over, and it says, rather disarmingly, Jane Grey died 1554. Why on earth one should suppose that such a tiny, tiny little jewel should have anything to do with a Queen of England albeit a queen who only reigned for 9 days, is really stretching credibility to the limits, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Well, it is, yeah.
So I think what we can be faced with here is that we've got a late 16th, early 17th century magical jewel mounted in silver with an added punch referring to a queen who died after reigning only 9 days.
Yeah.
She died a violent death in the Tower of London with the axe. And this, I know, and this is a reference to her.
Yeah.
She's a Protestant heroine, and that, I think, is why it's engraved on the back. And this is no way meant to deceive. It also no way is it meant for us to believe that this is a jewel directly from her.
No.
It's just a reference to an English martyr.
Yeah.
Marvellous, marvellous thing. Can you imagine how we're going to value this?
Not really, because I can't see this has a lot of value.
No, and I think you're absolutely right. I'd say its value is absolutely next to nothing, which is absolutely unimportant to me because I think it's loaded with interest. And let's hope it brings some good luck to both of us. That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Well, it would.
Now, this looks like a little oriental slipper, doesn't it? Has it come from the Orient? Where did it come from?
Well, it came from Russia originally. My grandfather went out there with the British chess team, and when they left, they were each given one of these. I assume they're all identical, I don't know, but my grandfather had this one.
Wonderful story, isn't it? Well, Russia is certainly bang on. This is what we call a kovsh. It's a Slavonic wine-tasting vessel. But it's been rather sort of shrunk down here. Of course, it's, in practical terms, it can't be used, but
No.
its very shape suggests Russia. But tell me, in your family, what's been its history?
Well,
it's a
I've
chess
known it
brand.
ever since I can remember, and my parents really used it as an ashtray. And I didn't realise till so many years later, and eventually got married, and my husband here polished it. He said,
Very good.
I'll try to clean it, and underneath suddenly appeared the silver.
Isn't that
And it was
marvellous?
jet black before, and I've known it for years as just being jet black, you know, throwing it around the room. And
Very
what have
good,
you.
very posh to throw it around the room, very extravagant gesture in a way. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about the decoration. It's enamel, but it's in a rather sort of soft kind of palette. But the style of the object is in Russian 17th century style. And there was a huge revival in Russia around and about 1900 with the Romanov tercentenary to remind themselves of their past. And all things Russian were desperately important, and so even metalwork took up this theme. And my guess is, looking underneath, yes, absolutely, that we're going to find that this is by the most distinguished goldsmith, really, of the 20th century, aren't we? I think we've got an idea who it is. Can you guess who it is?
Fabergé, I assume.
Absolutely, bang
It's the
on.
only name I know.
Well, it's called The Last Flowering of Court Art. So we have a truly marvellous, small, deeply attractive piece of Fabergé with a rather checkered history, and it's come through it awfully well, I think. And it's just worth looking at the bottom for a second. There's a dedication inscription, which I don't think it'll be possible to unscramble at the moment, with Fabergé's full house mark underneath the double-headed Romanov eagle, which is a pinpoint to the fact that this is a Moscow piece. And on the side here, we can see in Cyrillic the initials FR, and that stands for Fyodor Rukut, who's the actual maker of this object. And although it was retailed by the great shop of Fabergé, this is what we call a workmaster's work. Fyodor Rukut not only worked for Fabergé, he worked for other people. But happily, all the coconut shies have gone down with this, and we're in a very exciting position financially, coming from a chess prize to an ashtray, being blackened, being cleaned up by a devoted husband, being brought to the Antiques Roadshow. We reached a crescendo valuation where I think it's perfectly safe for insurance to put this down at £5,000.
Good grief. Aren't I a clever little husband?
You are. I think you better keep him on, you know.
Oh, well, yeah, I will.
Yes, I think so. Good.
I've collected jewellery since I was about 8. I started at jumble sales, worked up to junk shops, and then 1 or 2 auctions.
What really drives you to buy this?
The beauty and the colour of stones, and the fact that they have to go through so much effort to get the stones where
From
they
the
are
ground.
today, yes.
Exactly. The fascination that we have for these things is because they're things of natural beauty. I mean, this is a star sapphire, isn't it? And do you know how the star is achieved in the sapphire?
I believe it's a fault in the stone.
It's a sort of a fault in the stone. It's rather like the sheen on silk, and the 2 strands of silk cross one another, and as the light falls onto it, it's separated and turned into a star. It's a sort of greyish sapphire in a way, isn't it?
Yes.
But a very, very pleasing one. And I think the thing about precious stones is, and the deep fascination for mankind, is that they're completely unchanging, aren't they?
Yes.
And we know perfectly well that it's us that are the ephemeral things. On this table, this is sand and sugar, isn't it? The sand is the simulated jewellery, and the sugar, the sweetest of all, is the diamonds and the emeralds and the sapphires and the rubies. And here are 3 delicious grains of sugar, aren't there?
Yes.
And this scintillation, this return of light, is really quite inimitable, isn't it? And one does simply recognise it. But here is something that looks for all the world, it appears to be an emerald bead necklace with an emerald-cut emerald in the centre clasp. But it isn't, is it?
No, I would think it's synthetic.
It's one made in a furnace, not by God. What do you feel about that? Do you think there is a difference between a man-made one and a natural one?
Well, there obviously is from the point of view that nature made the original, but that has its own beauty, and it's quite a nice stone to wear.
Which is your favourite?
My favourite? That one.
That one. Let's have a close look at that. The sapphire and diamond ring. The finest colour of sapphire is a cornflower blue, a cashmere sapphire with amazing velvety visual texture, which actually isn't in this one necessarily, because had it been so, it would have been worth £30,000-40,000 and more. And so a nuance of colour makes all the difference to value.
It reminds me of a summer sky.
Yes, well, I think that's completely poetic and marvellous. I don't really know how to value your collection. I think the simulated gems, which you're obviously fond of, are valued at no more than £10 or £15. And then, mixed in here, is a valuable ring, without doubt. A 3-stone diamond ring with what look to be perfectly pure and nice stones. And I suppose, you know, conservatively, that must be sort of £6,000 or £7,000 and more, mustn't it?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. So a collection measured in tens of thousands of pounds and tens of pounds. And it's all jewellery, it all lives under the same name, and it gives you pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Came across them about 12 years ago in Edinburgh in a curio shop.
That's nice. And was there, did they tell you anything about its history at all?
Well, there was a label on it saying it was almost certainly.
Almost certainly. We've heard that one before. Yeah, tell me, almost certainly what?
Almost certainly made for Queen Victoria in mourning for Prince Albert, and I wanted to believe that.
Well, I think it's not terribly likely, actually, because although they're very beautiful jewels, they're not quite so sumptuous enough for a queen, I don't think. And it's called champ levé enamel, which means literally a raised field, and the enamel fills the reserves where the engraving tool has gone. And it's picked out rather nicely with these crowns, and I think probably the crowns have given rise to the idea that this is a piece of royal mourning jewellery. It's rather interesting that you bought them in Scotland because they're set with cairngorms. And, of course, Victoria and Albert had very strong associations with Scotland, and they enjoyed finding these raw rock crystals and having them polished, and it created something of a craze at that time. I think there's a very strong possibility that they are mourning jewels for Prince Albert, but they may have been made to a royal order to be given to somebody of lesser stature, and my guess is that these are probably for a particular lady at court. Prince Albert died in 1861, and the Queen was utterly grief-stricken. She wrote to her uncle, King Leopold of the Belgians, saying, "My life as a happy one is ended, the world is gone from me." And then thence afterwards, until she died in 1901, she was preoccupied with her grief and her mourning. So these would have been an appropriate thing. The date of 1861 is absolutely perfect for the style and work of these jewels. So I think in a way it's sort of credible. We just slightly missed the bullseye.
Step or two down.
Not a real big lie, it was just a small lie.
Yeah, a small lie. Well, those sometimes so very necessary in life, aren't they, really? But I'm not sure they should be brought into commerce, really. You wanted to wear them when you bought them, did you? Did you find them wearable?
Yeah, I find it, but only when I wear black. I
Yes.
think it only looks good on black. Yeah,
I think it's utterly splendid that you're wearing jewellery.
Yeah.
The English are very frightened of wearing jewellery today, and you show them how it's really done. So that's
but
great.
it's a bit difficult here in Yorkshire when you live in Yorkshire.
No, I don't
and
think
walk
so.
through the fields.
No, I think it's brilliant to see you walking through the fields. You'd rather like Mary Queen of Scots, I think, wearing that, wouldn't you? Brilliant idea. So, come on, we're all itching to know what they cost in Edinburgh 6 years ago.
Come on. He didn't tell me.
Judging by what I'm hearing,
He's going to tell you now.
I'm hesitant to say.
He's going to have to tell you now.
I paid something in the region of £3,000 for it, which
Well,
probably makes you gasp.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't make me gasp. It's quite a full price, without doubt. But the thing is that it's no good sort of chasing bargains all one's life. And if you really want good things, you've got to pay for them. And there's an old saying in the antiques trade that one really only regrets one's bargains. One never regrets one's extravagances. You certainly shouldn't regret this. This is lovely, lovely jewellery. Thanks for showing it. Brilliant.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much.
I went to a junk shop.
Did you?
Yes, and rummaging around this box, I found, I don't know which bit, one of the pieces, and I thought, I like that. So I took it up and went to pay for it, and the bloke said, I think it was this bit, this one.
Yes.
Yeah, it was that one. And he said, that's 25 pence. So I thought, lovely. So I was going to leave, and it occurred to me, it just could be the other half. So I went back, and I found it.
You didn't?
Yes.
And what did he...
said, that's 50 pence.
50 pence?
Yeah.
Gosh, you were going right in the fast track there, weren't you, at 50 pence? Most beautiful thing, my goodness.
I just love it.
It's wonderful. Now, it's silver. Had you guessed it was silver?
I had no idea it was silver. I couldn't believe it. When, possibly a year or two later, I realised there was a hallmark on the back.
Well, there certainly is on the back, and that's very helpful, actually, because it tells us not only the maker of this object, but also the year in which it was made, which was 1907. And it's made by Liberty & Co.
It's
Yes, it is.
It isn't a Liberty one.
It is a Liberty one.
How do you know that?
Because the hallmark is there, and it tells me that it's Liberty.
Now I know it's Liberty. It'd be even more special.
Gives it the context.
It's wonderful. I just love it.
Well, isn't that marvellous? I don't know how you measure that excitement, actually. I mean, I think the point of the Antiques Roadshow is it is a sort of voyage of discovery. It's a sort of treasure hunt, perhaps an archaeological site without any digging or troweling away. But you went to the archaeological site, you found the first part, you found the second part, and you've been rewarded by a very beautiful thing. Well, value, I mean, 500, maybe 600 pounds.
I think I found it in a junk shop.
You did. Now, where is that junk shop?
I'm not going to tell you.
It's very mean.
No, I'm not going to tell you.
It's beautiful, isn't it? Look at it gleaming in the gleam of gold there.
This is actually a brooch, but it broke, so I use it as a necklace, but I will have it repaired one day.
It's worth it, I think. They're rather fascinating, aren't they? Were they your great-grandmothers?
They were my great-grandmothers, yes, and came down to me.
From Germany?
From Germany, yes.
But I think what's significant about this jewellery is that it's made of filigree and granulation.
Yeah.
Which is typical of all types of folk jewellery, from the Mediterranean up to the North Countries and Denmark and Scandinavia. The bracelet itself is a later addition because the colour of the gold is different and the phrasing of the metal.
Yeah, I wondered why.
And yet there are holes here for stitching, or at least some kind of textile. And it's my idea that this was once a hair bracelet, that there was tightly woven lock of hair supporting this bracelet.
Around it?
Around it. And this is what we very often find, that of course this is perishable and wears out, and yet a gold clasp remains. And so they string it onto perfectly sensibly a later gold bracelet. But hair, I'm pretty certain that it was, actually.
That's interesting.
It's an idea we're totally at odds with in the 20th century.
It
but
must have been strong hair.
Well, I think it was. I think it really was. Well, good Teutonic hair, you see, that's what we want. But anyway, they're marvellous survival. But oddly enough, having opened your little Pandora's box of jewellery here, it's not the jewellery that you have in the case that's interesting me, but it's the necklace you've got round your neck. Can you take that off?
Yes.
Let's have a really good look.
I thought it belongs to what?
You thought it became part of it?
Yes.
Yes, I think it's not actually part.
Because it's similar. The clasp, if you look at it, it's similar to...
Well, it's decorated again with these tiny granules of gold, which gold is the most mysterious commodity because you can solder granules of the tiniest dust-like proportions to the surface of gold and give it this very interesting texture, and that's been going on since very ancient times. And these have erroneously been called muff chains. They're not muff chains. Because they were long, it was assumed that a muff would hang on it and put your hands through it. And it's quite nice to be able to sort of demolish that terminology once and for all, because they simply are not muff chains. They're simply there for decoration. It dates from about 1840. And it's this one that's really disproportionately valuable, because complicated gold jewellery, not easy to wear in the 20th century. And these two, fascinating as they are, they're worth low hundreds of pounds, say 350, £450 for the clasp alone, and with the bracelet, £500. But this one, put it down on your little inventory for £2,000. Surprised?
Yes.
Good. Now tell me exactly why you brought this brooch to the Antiques Roadshow.
Well, I was told it was valuable, but I wasn't just sure, and I came to get the truth.
The truth?
The
Wow.
truth.
Well, the truth, as you know, has to be used with great economy in life, and I'm going to tell it to you just as it is. What were you told about the stones in this brooch?
Well, I was told it was a brown diamond.
Mm-hmm. Well, they were absolutely right. It's a brown diamond and white diamonds at either end. And in a way, it's rather remarkable for that. We don't see coloured diamonds very often in life. To be perfectly honest, we don't see rather large diamonds in life very often, do we? Tell me, whose was it?
It was an aunt of mine, and she was the same name as myself, so I eared it.
Well, that's wonderful, isn't it? I'm just lucky you did have the same name, actually. We might have bypassed you. And it's not something one would want to bypass in life, because it's a very, very glamorous object indeed. I think it's worth saying about diamonds is that the white diamonds is what people really want. Blue white diamonds even better. Then, when they look inside, they want to see it absolutely flawless in the inner depths of the stone, and they'll use a diamond glass to determine that, using quite a high magnification to look into the inner recesses of the stone. Then, of course, they look for sheer size in diamonds, and this is a very respectable size. It's probably about 2 carats, something of that sort. And it's a curiosity. Have you ever seen a brown diamond before?
No, and my aunt wore it, and she said it wasn't a diamond.
Well,
She said, that's not a diamond.
Well, I'm absolutely confident that it is, and it's a very exciting thing for me to see, actually. It is, of course, the hardest material known to man. It scratches every other material in the planet, and there's a guide to hardness called Mohs Guide of Hardness, where every stone is used to scratch another stone. The diamond is at the top of that, resplendent at the top. Whatever you do to it, you cannot scratch it. And then, second on Mohs scale is the sapphire. And the diamond is 7 times harder than the second layer down. But what we can say is that this is a remarkable thing to find today. And to tell you also that the cutting of the diamond is a 19th century, late 19th, perhaps early 20th century cut, and it's been put into a brooch rather later on, so it lived in another jewel before, as indeed its little partners at the end did. And it's a shawl pin for a very elegant lady in about 1900. So a remarkable object in every sense of the word. So we've got to get down to the nitty-gritty hardness of diamonds and get down to hard facts about finance. Go home, ring up the insurance company and say you want to cover it for £2,500.
Right. That's
Surprise?
Super. That's super.
Good. Well, this is a most wonderful Art Deco brooch. Tell me who it was made for.
Well, I think it's my mother's. I think it was a 21st birthday present for her in 1938.
Oh, that's interesting. I've got a funny feeling it was made a little earlier than that, you know. There's various aspects of the design that point to it being just a tiny bit earlier than that, maybe 10 or 15 years. It seems to me a positive distillation of the Art Deco period, doesn't it? What parts of it did you think looked Art Deco particularly?
Well, the oblong and the big diamond in the centre.
Right. And funny enough, it's the sun rays that appear left and right that sort of interested me as a sort of Art Deco focus. And these strange conventionalised bunches of grapes. This is a sort of really a landscape, isn't it, in diamonds? And it's an interesting one too because it's very spirited. It's a really great Art Deco jewel, but strangely it's English. And actually we associate the very best Art Deco jewels with France. And so it's interesting for that too. I mean, I must say I do love it. My goodness, it's very enviable because it's exactly the right scale for everybody today. I think there's lots of people who wouldn't mind wearing that on a black suit, and because it's so colourless too, it's exactly what people want. So all of those things do add up to, you know, something really very desirable indeed, and with desirability comes value, doesn't it?
Yes.
Well, have you had any thoughts about it being what its value is? Obviously it's
Well, I know its probate value of 1997, and that's all. It was 1,200 then.
Yes. Well, it does seem to me very low, to be frank. I think that this is a little work of art. It's the finest craftsmanship. It's also very, very beautiful diamonds. So I'm going to go a bit mad, I'm afraid. Are you ready?
Yes.
I'm going to tell you that it's worth £8,500.
Oh, my word.
It's lovely. Crazy about it.
Yes.
Now, would you be upset if I told you that this was a souvenir? Would that?
It might well be. I don't know where it came from. It was just sitting in the bank, really. I don't know where it came from at all.
How amazing. Well, originally it came from Rome, and it's the sort of object that would have been brought back by a first-class grand tourist visiting Rome. And it's perfectly obvious that it's a Roman ruin. I mean, there's no, at least an Italian ruin, but what's more significant and points us towards the fact that this is a very grand souvenir is that it's laid out in micro-mosaic. Have you thought about this technique at all?
No, I know nothing about it.
No. Well, if it's made up of tiny, tiny pieces of glass and some perhaps hard stones too, that are laid into a background minutely and very accurately, and it's a sort of miracle of human craftsmanship.
It's tiny, little bits.
And it refers back to the mosaics of ancient Rome, the Byzantine mosaics, the Roman mosaics, that such a man would go to visit. And so he might well have brought this back to a member of his family who had not had the pleasure of visiting Rome with him. But this is quite a lavish thing. There's quite a lot of plate powder in the surface of it, which prevents us from understanding immediately that this is a rather ravishing gold box. Solid gold. It's marvellous.
Is it really? I didn't know it was gold.
Yes, absolutely. It's actually a very matte gold, and gold is very malleable material. You can push it around and engrave it and texture it. And this is exactly what's happened here. The two marvellous sort of neoclassical griffins, rather fierce-looking chaps with beards, and it's lined with a very smart band of enamel, which is an echo of the band of enamel on the front. What about date? Any thoughts? Any ideas?
I don't know. It was just in... My mother died a few years ago, and it was just in a box in the bank, you know, so I know really nothing about it. What would she put in it?
It's a snuff box, notionally.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Because it's tiny, isn't it? I mean, it wouldn't fit a cigarette or anything.
No, absolutely not. No, snuff it is, and this is a very, very eloquent and beautiful example from about 1820. Now, having said that it was almost certainly bought in Rome, the great surprise is that it's not made in Rome, it's Swiss.
Oh, really?
Yes. And all they've done is incorporate a mosaic, which does come from Rome.
Yes.
It's hugely enviable. I think everybody behind us would love to sort of snatch this out of our hands, wouldn't they, and run away with it. I would. And because of that, it's really quite a valuable object. And so, goodness, what shall we say? £15,000.
Gracious. Whoa. I think you'd better go back in the bank.
So, perhaps I'll go with it. Brilliant. Absolutely marvellous. Thank you so much. Fabulous. It's actually made in England in 1840. This derives from a design conceived by Prince Albert. He asked for 12 bridesmaids' brooches to be made out of these materials for the Queen to hand out immediately after the wedding ceremony. And it's absolutely loaded with amatory significance. This is a hand on which a lovebird has alighted. It's a lovebird made of turquoise, and in the language of the lapidary, the turquoise stands for true love. It's an echo of the colour of the forget-me-not flower, and it means forget-me-not too. But also you can see lurking here is a tiny little ruby eye for the lovebird. And again, in the language of the lapidary, this stands for passion. So we've got passionate true love. And also we want that forever. Dream on, as they say. But it's true in that the fingernails of the hand are actually diamonds, and diamonds are forever. So this is forever, passionate, true love in a tiny jewel like this. What does it mean to you?
Well, I just love it.
You wear it?
And I do wear it, yes.
Had you got a clue about its meaning, its hidden meaning?
Well, no, I hadn't really.
No, well, in a way, that's good fun, because I think the point about jewellery is that it does act on us kind of subliminally. There's something very deep-seated in us, this understanding, and we don't have to think about it very carefully and hard. But I must say it's hugely animated. I mean, it really is very sculptural, and that's quite rare in jewellery. Usually it's very sort of two-dimensional, and it is the liveliest composition I've seen of this type of jewellery. Intrinsic value is nothing, really, absolutely nothing. I mean, really no more than sort of £80 to £100 in the value of the stones, but in the value of the composition, £800.
Goodness, I'll still wear it.
Good, that's what it's for. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, this is a tiny, tiny little ring, isn't it? What prompted you to bring it to us today?
Well, because I believe it's valuable.
Did you? Why?
Yeah.
What made you think that?
Well, it says Lalique inside.
Well, it does, doesn't it?
Yes.
And tell me what you know about Lalique.
Well, I know they did...
it's French.
French, yes. And They do a lot of
jewellery, did
pottery as well.
Yes, glass later on,
glass,
yeah.
Well, that's where we realised that it could be valuable. Yes.
Well, I mean, it's not only a rare thing, but it's a very beautiful thing, isn't it?
It is,
and
yes.
tell me, who gave it to you?
Old gentleman who lived next door. We made a lot of
He was on his own, left on his own, and we looked after him and so on. He was 94 years old.
And did he know about whatever?
I don't really know.
It was Lalique till after he died.
I don't think he realised the value of it at all.
No, but what has to be said is that this is a complete little masterpiece of goldsmith's work. And it has to be said, too, that it's made by one of the towering geniuses of the Art Nouveau movement, René Lalique. And he just happens to be a genius who chose to work in jewellery and then moved on into glass. And this is a tiny expression of his work, but it's all there. Now, tell me, what do you think about the screen material?
I don't know. Is it enamel?
It is enamel.
Yeah.
It's a very particular sort of enamel, which we call plique à jour enamel, which means applied to the day, which is another way of saying that this is an enamel without a background. And the point about Lalique is that he was returning to nature. His inspiration comes from plant life and from animal life.
Yeah.
And in order to achieve that, he used what was actually a Japanese technique in suggesting the veins in leaves and the veins in the wings of buzzing insects with pierced gold, and then he'd hold the enamel in suspension like a bubble, and it gives a little bit of naturalism, or more than a little bit of naturalism. Now, the reason it's tiny, of course, is that it's a ring, so this is not marks against it in any way at all, actually, that it is a tiny, tiny little work of art. People collect these things, and if it turned up in a sale, two collectors wanting it very badly, I think maybe 5,000, maybe 6,000 wouldn't be completely mad. Well, an incredible collection of jewellery. And when did you start collecting all of these?
Oh, about 35 years ago.
35. And how many have you got altogether?
700.
700. And they're all brooches?
700 brooches.
My
I've got bracelets.
And where do you wear any of them?
Oh, yes, some of them.
Which do you like to wear?
I like that one there.
That one, right.
And that's a favourite of mine there.
Yeah, brilliant.
Where's the other one?
And what about these? What are those? Tell us about those.
Those are Mother's Day presents off my children.
Oh, are they? From Mother?
Yes,
they're a bit
Mother's
sort of
Day.
scratchy, aren't they? Do you know what they are?
Yes.
What are they?
Rabbit's claws?
No, they're grouse's claws, and they're to do with the shoot. The feet of the grouse that have been shot were then taken to the jeweller and mounted up.
So it's real?
Oh, definitely it's real. Very scratchy, aren't they? And, ooh,
Not
yes.
as scratchy as these.
No, those are quite scratchy too, aren't they? Boy, oh boy. And do you wear those all the time? It's a bit like it's like armour, isn't it?
Yeah,
You don't-
I wear them all the time.
And they're a bit sort of Chinese in a way, aren't they? They look
Quite
like those
heavy.
sort of fingernail guards of Chinese
Yeah.
emperors and things. Do they make you feel like an empress or not?
No.
They don't.
No, I just feel different.
What's the most different one here? Come on. Tell me about that one. Where did you
I
find
got that off the internet. I go through the auction rooms.
Do you?
And I put a bid in for about £2 and I won it.
Isn't it wonderful?
So that was a good buy.
And I like it because it's a glass of champagne with bubbles coming out of it, which is, part of being different again, isn't it? The good party jewel. But it also makes a reference to jewellery that was going on at the time. This is a jewel that looks to me as if it might have been made in the 30s or 40s. And it's simulating baguette diamonds and brilliant diamonds. And the original could have been made by, well, indeed, it would have been by Cartier or Boucheron or something like that. And had it been set with diamonds and been as imaginative as that, instead of being £2, it might have been £20,000.
Oh my God! I'll have to find a real one.
Wouldn't that be good? That'd be very good. Well, I think you will in the end because you're so determined, aren't
Well,
you?
I've got so many, and that one, my daughter bought me that one, and I really like that one because. I think the ones the kids buy you are
more touching, aren't they?
They're more priceless.
No, it's brilliant, isn't it? It's brilliant colours. It's like a sort of pomegranate, isn't it? Fab.
I nearly wore all 700 on this.
All 700? You would have been clunking away like
getting them on,
mad, wouldn't you?
They came to me through my parents, who were in Iran in the early 1930s, and the White Russians brought this stuff with them as their only means of currency. They didn't have anything else. They were refugees. And that's how my parents came by them.
Well, they went to the right place with it because the Iranians are very attracted to this cloisonné enamel, Russian cloisonné enamel, because it's very brightly coloured, and I think they saw a reference to their own tradition of enamelling. They're in revival of 17th century enamel work. This one most particularly is not only in revival of 17th century enamel, but it's a 17th century shape called a kovsh, which is a Russian wine-tasting vessel. It's a Slavonic object. It's rather like having a sort of three-dimensional Union Jack, if you like. They are spectacularly beautiful examples. Must have been swiped off sideboards from very noble houses just to flee Russia with something.
Exactly.
This one would appeal to collectors enormously, actually, because it's a cigarette lighter, and I think one possibly doesn't really think of these being possibly 20th century objects, really made possibly in 1910, 1915. And a match case probably in advance of the lighter. This would hold matches, napkin rings, salts, and a spoon. One of the greatest masters of Russian cloisonné enamelling was a man called Semenov. And I think from the quality of this work that we're going to find that this is by him, and indeed it is. And his business was inherited by his daughter, Maria Semenova. They're very valuable, actually. Have you thought about their value at all?
I don't know what they're worth at this point in time, no.
Quite nice values, really. Maybe 800 for the lighter. Everybody would be thrilled to find that. Another 800 for the kovsh. Let's say 3,500 for the whole group.
Really? Much as that? Fantastic.
My wife had it for, I don't know, 5-6 years. It's probably come down through the family. She was quite happily wearing it as a bit of costume jewellery.
Bit of costume jewellery?
Yeah.
And what did she wear it on?
Denim jackets.
Denim jackets.
Anything that she thought, nice sparkly thing. And then we took it to a jeweller's in Chancery Lane to get the clasp sort of repaired a little bit. And he turned around and said, you do realise it's the real thing?
The real thing.
And so she's not worn it since, more's the pity.
Diamonds and denim.
Yes, exactly.
She really thought a bit about the design.
I did notice that the two ends unscrewed, but that was...
Well, they unscrew because there was probably not only this brooch, but a cascade of them running the front of a lady's fiercely corseted dress in about 1900. So you think your wife had problems. Think of Princess Yusupova walking around with this. Not bad, is it?
No, not bad at all.
Not bad. Now, I say Princess Yusupova because I can tell that this is a Russian brooch by the safety clasp. There's a strange little sort of twist like a question mark at the end, which is a brilliant device because it stops the owner pricking her finger, or more accurately her lady's maid pricking her finger, because you've never put this sort of thing on yourself in pre-revolutionary Russia. What we call a stomacher because it runs along the front of the stomach of such a lady I can't think how it could have been more beautiful. Why, what's the look? And just underneath here there's a break in the design, which I think is where the second and third, and I don't know how many more brooches went down to meet it. A tiny little groove here. And also observe the beauty of this gallery here, the pierced gallery, and the fact that the back of the brooch is made of gold, and yet the front is of platinum to give the whiteness of the effect. I think it's probably quite a late brooch. It's 20th century. The Russians, it's a curiously sort of feudal life they were living there, and in the early 20th century things couldn't be more sumptuous and more bejewelled and more exotic, really. So this is a fantastic context, really, isn't it? I'm just going to look a little bit for hallmarks. Russian hallmarks almost always appear on the clasp of the jewel and along the pin, which is strange, and yet there are more here. And it's jolly good that I did check that, actually, because there are the initials of the maker there, Theodore Laurier, who is a very well-known Art Nouveau jeweller, making things in the manner of Lalique, serpents and butterflies and that sort of thing. So this is a slightly conventional one for him, but a very beautiful one. Now, what did the jewellers have to say about it? They must have admired it very much, I think, didn't they?
Well, they did, yes. They said it was a lovely piece, and even turned around and said, I'll give you 5,000 scrap for it. I said, no.
5,000 scrap?
I said, no,
wow.
I don't think so.
No, well, I think scrapping it's not the right word.
Exactly.
I think we've gone beyond scrapping.
No, it's too beautiful for someone to break down.
Fabulous context. Well, you know, if he's going to offer you £5,000 scrap for it, double it up for insurance. £10,000 for insurance, yeah.
Dear me.
Well, they were given to my great-grandfather, who was chef to Edward VII and Queen Victoria at the end of her reign, by the crowned heads of Europe, and some of these are the Russian pieces.
Amazing. Now, do you think that they were objects given almost as a sort of thank you to this?
That's right. Yes.
And is this all the things that you have? Are there any more?
No, I have some other pieces which come from Manuel of Portugal, Kaiser Bill.
All the visitors to
All the
Sandringham,
visitors,
all the visitors
yes,
to
that's
Buckingham
right,
Palace,
that's
all the
right.
cousins of the British royal family that descended from Queen Victoria.
That's right,
In a
yes.
sense, she's a fountainhead of this sort of
Yes, she
society,
was.
European royal society.
That's
Let's have a look at those. These are Russian ones, and a pair of gold cufflinks set with rubies and diamonds, alternating rubies and diamonds, in a sort of nugget effect.
Nugget, that's what I've always been told, yes, gold nuggets.
And there's a most marvellous word in Russia used to describe this, which is called samorodok, which means a nugget. And it's a very, very Russian technique, much favoured by Fabergé. And in fact, these are not by Fabergé, and the lid satin rather conveniently tells us that they're made by somebody called Ivanov, working in St. Petersburg. And it's certain that they are a gift from the member of the imperial family, because the imperial family's cipher appears above.
Yes.
And do you know exactly who gave those?
I think it was Tsar Nicholas.
He certainly came to London, and he certainly went to Sandringham, and there were many opportunities in which he could have offered those. Tell me about what you know about him as a chef. Why was he so favoured, do you think?
Well, he was a Frenchman to start with, and I understand he'd been chef to people like the Rothschilds and had been to Saltram in Devon. And Edward VII heard of him and wanted him to be his chef, and I think he may have poached him.
What did he look like? Do we know what he looked like?
Yes, I have a picture here.
Oh, isn't it marvellous? And with his
of
family?
His family, with mother, with his wife, and the two daughters, my grandmother and my aunt.
Oh, that's very touching, isn't it? My goodness.
Yes,
he looks quite sort of...
avuncular.
Well, doesn't he? He's a brilliant chap, I must say.
Yes.
And so these were his things. Well, let's just run through them a little bit further. Have you thought about these ones here?
Well, I have been told that they were cufflinks, but they have little rings on, as you can see just there. And I really don't know. I imagine because they were given to my great-grandfather, they must have been cufflinks, I feel, and because he only had daughters, possibly the daughters had them made into brooches or pendants.
I think what has happened, and rather sadly, is that when these adaptations have been made to turn them into brooches, that the marks have been lost. But these are very characteristic of Fabergé's work. Okay. We call this guilloché enamel, and it's an engine-turned gold mount that's flooded with translucent pink enamel, and then the imperial eagle is applied as a gold cipher over and above that. And in every way, they're positively reek of Fabergé. But in stamp collecting terms, I can't be absolutely certain. But I can be certain about this one. And does the family history say that that was an imperial gift?
They do. They do say, the family told me that was definitely given by Tsar Nicholas.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that at all. And there's absolutely no doubt at all that this is a full-blown Fabergé brooch. It is.
Oh,
it's signed.
Because I wondered, and I sort of half hoped it would be, and that's marvellous.
Well, it's a most distinguished thing. Again, the use of the guilloché enamel, yellow enamel in this case, and two colours of gold, little laurel wreaths, and tied with a diamond bow, emblematic of peace, and the Romanov crown set with diamonds and circled with pearls. And we know it's Fabergé because on the back here, there's the workmaster's initials for August Holming, who was not necessarily a specialist jeweller, but a worker in all manner of enamel work. So goodness me, and there's more at home. There's more souvenirs.
Yes, well, a few more. Yes, a few more.
Now, as for value, the cufflinks are impressive. They're very Russian technique in the manner of Fabergé, but a rose by any other name smells as sweet, but it certainly isn't as valuable.
No.
And I think with an imperial provenance, nonetheless, they are very desirable, very wearable. And a very precise provenance, so I suppose something like £7,000 or £8,000 for the cufflinks.
Really? My goodness gracious me.
Nothing to do with intrinsic value, nothing at all. These, I believe them to be Fabergé from a technical basis, really, and as souvenirs of Nicholas II, which is absolutely certain. I think we can go a bit mad again. £8,000 to £10,000 for those. You feeling calm? It's very, very good, isn't it? Making me nervous.
Things that I don't really want to sell, you see. No. I want to keep, and yes, because they're family pieces.
Well, I think in a way they should be kept together as a collection.
Should they? That's what I wanted to ask you.
Context everything here and provenance, actually. And what about this one? Any ideas for that one?
Well, if these are that price, that must be £10,000.
Well, it is £10,000, and it's more than £10,000.
Is it?
Yep. It's £15,000.
My dear chap. God.
It's wonderful.
That's amazing. I never realised it would be as much as that, I must confess.
No.